Good morning, viewers. You're watching NewsX and this is Simran. Let's begin the bulletin with the top story of this hour. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has addressed the United Nations General Assembly in 79th sessions of the United Nations General Assembly debate, supporting there of leaving no nation behind. EAM expressed concerns over several issues happening in the world. EAM also addressed several issues like COVID pandemic, war in Ukraine, ongoing conflict in Gaza and unemployment. During his address, External Affairs Minister also gave a clarion call for the reform of the United Nations and said that it cannot remain anarchic and it is essential for the world body to be more representative and fit for the purpose in the contemporary era. As of now, what we are also seeing that there have been statements that have been made on the death of Hassan Nasrallah's death. In fact, at this point of time, at the 79th session of the UNGA, joining me at this point of time is my colleague Arzu. Arzu, as we can understand, and very good morning to you, there is of course a lot of expectation on what's being said at the 79th UN General Assembly debate, and what especially the comments that have been made by S. Jaishankar, in fact, are of very important points that he has raised, including COVID and Pakistan's policy, in fact, of cross-border terrorism. Also saying that it is not going to succeed ever. What are the latest that you're tracking, apart from the comments that have been made at the UN General Assembly debate?
Well, yes, Simran, and External Affairs Minister Jaishankar used his address at the United Nations General Assembly, debate to hit back at Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's speech a day earlier. Two countries engaged in a round of, tit for tat remark over Friday and Saturday. And in fact, he also, said, referring to the UNGA theme this year, saying that, leaving no one behind. As Jaishankar said that many countries get left behind due to the circumstances beyond their control, but some makes consequences a choice with disastrous consequences, as he named Pakistan, also suggesting that the Pakistan could measure its GDP in terms of radicalization and export in terms of terror, he said. And also he mentioned that today, as we see the ills it sought to visit on others, consume its own society, it cannot, blame the word. This is only karma. So the S. Jaishankar used the word karma for what is happening inside the Pakistan right now. And also, the minister referred to Pakistan's assertions on Friday as a bizarre and said that the terrorism would have consequences. Pakistan have asserted in its right to reply that the Jammu and Kashmir was a disputed territory and not an integral matter of the India. Along with other things, the issue to be resolved between us is now only the vacation of illegally occupied Indian territory by Pakistan, and of course the amendment of the Pakistan long standing attachment of terrorism. As Jaishankar said a strong statement when he said that there is only one thing left unsolved, and that is the issue of Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Well, not only these issues, but also as Jaishankar talked about the COVID, how India has, has overcome the COVID time. And he also talked about the tension that is going on between the European countries. So all these remarks given by the Jaishankar at the UNGA. Yes, Simran.
All right, Azu, thank you for sharing the latest that you're tracking at this point of time. Also, viewers, joining me on the broadcast live is Major General Sudhakar Ji, who's a defense expert. Thank you for speaking to us and giving us your time, Sudhakar Ji. At this point of time, all eyes were specifically from India and the world on the statements that will be made on by the address of External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. And there we have finally of course, the statements that are addressing the issues with Pakistan and cross-border terrorism. How do you view in totality of what has been said in the address by EAM at the World Platform and the 79th UN General Assembly election debate by S. Jaishankar?
Thank you for getting me to your show, and any amount of compliment to NewsX will still fall short for picking up the right theme at the right time and the right place. And same goes for our Honorable Minister of External Affairs. Mr. Jaishankar is one person who makes a statement which is relevant at the global context, which is very, very appropriate at the regional level, and most appropriate and relevant at the local level, at the national level of India. So while he has made this statement, perhaps it will go down in the history of United Nations that a Minister of External Affairs has spoken so politely, but it has got silence, making a lot of noise, internal noise. The world is going through turbulence and polarization. And in this context, when he makes a reference to Pakistan and makes a statement that we have nothing to gain anything from Pakistan, there are two things which Pakistan can do. First and foremost is to let go the Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir to India, which is the rightful, honest, and I would say rules-based entitlement of India. It must come back to India in a peaceful manner. Second, to my understanding, Simran, is that if at all Pakistan has to avoid or leave anything, then it is not perhaps, it is actually stop sending the terrorists across the border into India and elsewhere in the world. So having made these two powerful statements and the meaning interpretation that I am deriving, I must also compliment the Honorable Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, that he has actually made the right sound, touched the right chord in the place, at the place where it actually matters. It's a very important year in 21st century, where the United Nations is subjected to review, revision and reform. India has come a long way. This is the 76th year of our independence. When it came on a platter to us, we declined to accept the permanent seat of the United Nations. We offered it on a platter to China. So be it, past cannot be undone, but what can be done is the new world order should arise and awake to the reality of the global south. Here is a nation with 1/6 of the humanity, doesn't have a power of consulting or being heard by an apex organization which was created long back in 1945. I think the time has come, the Honorable Minister is making the right sound at the right place. And I'm very optimistic. All his efforts and our Honorable Prime Minister and the whole leadership in the dispensation are making the right effort. I'm sure by the turn of the 2024, let's say by December, some good news will be round the corner in favor of India. Back to you, Simran.
All right, Major General Sudhakarji, in fact, there you have in fact made some good points. But when we see, there are also remarks that have been made by Joe Biden, in fact, at this point of time. When we look at the UN General Assembly debate, it's in fact rather more important to understand the kind of issues that are also being raised, and in fact the kind of stress that's been given to the global issues and the regional conflicts that in fact always keep coming back whenever we talk about the ties and the kind of strategic partnership both nations share. How do you view the comments that have been made by Joe Biden, especially US presidential elections are around the corner, and of course there are a lot of expectations from how these world leaders are in fact going to make the world believe about the cooperation that has been reinstated between the nations as far as the US is also concerned?
Absolutely, you put the finger at the right point. Excellent question you have raised. You see, let's look at it pragmatically, Simran. Today, the world is going through such a turbulent phase that on one hand, America is claiming and asserting its unipolarity. China is saying, sorry, unipolarity is not acceptable to me. I believe and I am practicing bipolarity. You please take me and accept me as a global power. And here is India, which is a pivot of, bringing East and West together, North and South, also bringing them to the high platform by virtue of its credibility, by virtue of its civilizational reputation, by virtue of the logo which we had coined for the G20, One Earth, One Family, One Future. I think it has put India on a high platform, duly supported by stroke of luck, I would say. Economy is also bounced back to a golden era now, and I'm sure in times ahead it is going to march ahead significantly. You see, the fact of the matter remains that USA today is a declining power. It's a superpower. Yesterday only I was reading a Western newspaper. One of the authors has beautifully said that in next decade, you will see not one superpower, you will see multiple superpowers. More than, he has listed out 10 of them. However, amongst these 10 superpowers, there is going to be one dominating superpower, that is the USA. India's name is figuring very prominently in that article. It's a well-researched article supported by many citations. But what is it that I'm trying to say? Under the circumstances, whatever the present leadership of USA or any country makes a statement, it is always going to be in favor of the national interest of USA or that particular country. USA is no exception. USA is already deeply involved in supporting the conflict which is ongoing in Ukraine and Russia. I do not see any kind of a ceasefire coming its way in foreseeable future. Same goes for the West Asia. Between the Hezbollah and the Israelis, again, I don't see any kind of ceasefire coming, because sooner or later the Houthis will start knocking down the ships of USA. USA willy-nilly will play into the hands of the conflict. It will be a vital, important player. Iran is going to also step into it. Iran is coming in a gradual way. And slowly you will find this is turning out to be a huge kind of a conflict of global war. World War III may be manifesting in near future, unless USA, before the election, takes a very serious and significant step to stop supplying and also extending any kind of grant or aid or financial support to Israel. Otherwise, my reckoning, my understanding is this conflict is going to carry on unabated well into beyond the river of Litani. Yesterday we were discussing about the river in 78, in 82, in 2000, in 2006. All this while, when Israel had invaded, it had invaded unsuccessfully and came back with a lot of losses. Every time they have been trying to push back the PLO or the Palestinians in some form or the other. It is, I think in 2000, if I recall correctly, Simran, they had managed to push the PLO beyond the line of Litani River. PLO, it is by virtue of the PLO having been pushed out or dislocated came the birth of the Hezbollahs. And that is how Hezbollah has been contesting a kind of a war which actually manifested in a very ugly manner in 2006. 2006, when Israel went in again to invade, they had a very sharp response from the Hezbollah, and they were on the knees, and they came back after 30 days with lots of losses. So I'm not saying that Hezbollah may be able to reorchestrate similar kind of conflict against Israel. Maybe the backbone of Hezbollah is already broken, and maybe things may take a very ugly shape, because the supply chain between Iran and Hezbollah has also been choked successfully and effectively. So therefore, sustaining Hezbollah will be a tall order and very difficult to think. What can happen is the Houthis, the Iraqi militia, and the Islamist jihadis put together, as per my research and study, it comes to around 30,000 odd terrorists. They can play merry hell against Israel. They will not let Israel to settle down peacefully. Whether you talk about the Gaza side or towards the West Bank or towards the northern Israel, they have the capability of launching missiles. And mind you, these are all ICBM category. They can hit any pinpoint targets very, very accurately. So therefore, what does it bring me to? It brings me to the question that you have raised in response to Biden's points. Biden is playing to the gallery to meet the requirement of Democrats coming back to power by the time when the elections are going to be conducted. That is 5th of November. Today, Kamala Harris is having a very successful and encouraging TRP. Donald Trump, although far behind, is also crawling forward. It is inching forward gradually. Next 30 days are very, very crucial. Anything can go anywhere, particularly Zelensky having gone to USA, come back. I would say $8 billion have been assured. But he has been denied the most crucial expectations of in the history of this Russo-Ukrainian war, that is the long-range standoff missile system, or so that he could hit the targets deep into the Russia, because that is going to be the red line as far as Russia is concerned. It may go in for a nuclear, not bluff, a nuclear kind of a conflict, which is very dangerous, both for America as also for Russia. Similarly, the European countries, as on today, all of them without any exception, nobody is in tune with USA. They have fallen apart. They had fallen apart prior to the the invasion, commencement of the invasion on 24th of February 2022. By virtue of this ongoing conflict, they have just about galvanized themselves as a united kind of a front, as a transatlantic kind of a body, based on which the global architecture of peace and human rights is surviving, namely the United Nations General Assembly, United Nations Security Council, and a couple of other organizations like World Health Organization, IMF, World Bank, etc., etc. But suffice to say that the threat in 20th century is no longer the same. In 21st century, there are different kinds of threats which are posing against Europe. There is a threat of both people migrating from North Africa and the Middle East. There is a demographic swap which is taking place. There is an economic recession. Winter is round the corner. And therefore, some countries have already gone public to this, to announce that they are going through a very terrible recession, economic recession. Some countries have also indicated in past 48 hours that they will not be able to participate in any kind of conflict as on today, namely UK. UK has brought down its armed forces strength from 1,68,000 couple of years back to just about 72,000. They do not have boots on ground. So likewise, many other countries, you talk about Italy, talk about Spain, talk about France, all the countries have reduced the armed forces strength. So therefore, it will be a kind of assertion of the declining power to revive its old pristine glory and the reputation, if at all it wants to continue as a superpower. If not, then perhaps the author who's authored the article which I read yesterday is going to be, it's a thing written quite large on the wall, and it is going to manifest in that manner. You will have a group of multiple superpowers. Amongst them, one of the dominant superpower will be USA. Back to you, Simran.
All right, Major General Sudhakar ji, thank you for in fact breaking it down to details, in fact, when we talk about how this United General Assembly debate at the 79th session is underway, and of course the comments that have been made by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar at the World Platform. Thank you for speaking to us and giving us your time. Now viewers, moving on to another important story that we're